First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Welcome to the New Life Recovery Show, brought to you by New Life Recovery Center. Special thank you to Vin McCormick for making it happen. If you need treatment, drugs, alcohol, even gambling, call 240-253-3663. They do offer treatment on demand. This show is about mental health, and one of the things that we all have to deal with. And as the son of a funeral director, I have many jokes with that regard. Nobody gets out alive. But while we're living, it doesn't have to be full of grief. We all are going to lose someone close to us. And I will tell you that even though I grew up in the funeral industry, we grew up taking care of bereaved families. When the shoe is on the other foot, Lord have mercy, everybody gets a turn. With us to discuss this part of life that no one likes to talk about is the daughter of a very famous man, if you ask me, William C. March. As a matter of fact, he's famous because he gave me my first scholarship, pretty much, first private scholarship, named after his sister. Annette, March-Grier, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Donnie. Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
You know, we both are UKs.
Yes.
Undertaker kids, like we had a choice. And that I'm gonna make you laugh. One day, I'm going to Lamel Junior High School. Now, up until through elementary school, you ain't got much to say. But by the time you get to junior high school, you're at a stage where we call stretching out. And I might have been running late for school, and Pops took me to Lamel in the hearse.
Oh my.
And I said at the corner of Dukeland and Gwynns Falls, you can let me out here.
That's right.
And him being the comedian that he is, he's like, oh no, we won't be having that. He drove me up to the door.
Oh wow.
You couldn't get any closer than he got. And it was like, wow.
Sorry about
Such
that.
is life. Your doggy must have known my daddy. I got a doggy sitting right here with me. How have you been? I haven't seen you in a month of Sundays.
Oh, I've been doing great. Very busy trying to I guess build Roberta's house and make it even more strong and serving, as many people as we possibly can. So, it's a very difficult job for those who work there, as well as trying to lead this nonprofit, because there are never enough resources in order to meet the needs, and there's never enough need to increase the awareness that people need to be equipped and have the tools that they need in order to uh, get through their grief. And a lot of education is still needed.
Now, we're going to get to Roberta's house, but I got to ask you, well, I want to acknowledge something that you and I both know. And you know it much, much better than do I. Let me start with this. Besides answering the phones as a young child, good evening, Glover's Funeral Chapel, may I help you? Besides answering the phone, probably since I was 7 years old. My first official job, besides sitting at the desk, letting families in, my first official job, I guess I was about 16, was collections.
Oh my. At 16.
Do you know how it is trying to collect money after the person is already buried?
Oh, impossible.
It's virtually impossible. But I learned some lessons there. And what I wanted to pose to you, or at least give you a chance to talk about, is how many times your family has taken care of families whose money was funny.
Oh wow. So, that number is countless. One reason is because of the communities we live in and the families that we serve. Um, it's a lot of inequities, and so many times, we are having to bury someone without insurance or without any funds because our families are living day to day, week to week, paycheck to paycheck. And to have that insurance, just in case, um, is not always possible for many families. In fact, that's how, my dad really gained his reputation in the community because he was willing to help any and everybody. Oftentimes children were buried free because he had a heart of sympathy and empathy for those families that had lost a child suddenly. So it is not uncommon for us to try to work with a family that doesn't have the resources or the funds. And many people don't really realize that. They think we're the most expensive guy in town, but we're not. We're really not. Um, Many of our other competitors are much more expensive, but because of the numbers that we do, we can sort of sometimes, um, give a little leadway, but it is very, very difficult because it's happening more and more frequently. And
You
and
know,
and we're a business. We're not a bank to give loans, and people have to understand that we have payroll to meet and other things as well. We employ over 150 employees, between the funeral homes and the cemetery. But we're blessed, and we continue to be blessed because we look at our work as being a ministry, serving.
amen.
Yeah,
Amen. Having grown up, and we live, you guys were at North and Kennedy, and my dad's
Cecil,
second funeral
North
home
and
was
Cecil,
Cecil. And
right?
we live just down the street from you above the funeral home in between Homewood and Boone.
Mm.
And over the years, I've had a chance to just admire and marvel at one, the family aspect. I mean, after we left North Avenue, the Reds family moved in. Of course, they had 3 sons, 3 daughters. And when you grow up in the UK family, everybody plays a role.
That's right. We all did.
Yeah, if you like eating, you like wearing clothes, then I mean, it was just ingrained in us. And I was the only child, so my experience might have been a tad unique. Uh, some of them kids in East Baltimore used to give me the blues. Here come the Undertaker's son. Woo, woo.
Yeah, we didn't have kids spending the night with us. I didn't have overnight parties. And around Halloween time, our house was the haunted house.
But I remember, and you may have even met him. Or well, you do know him. Teresa works for you. Teresa Davis.
Yes. Oh my gosh, she's been with us since probably our close to our beginnings. We grew up as children together. She was a teenager when I was a little young girl, so she's been with us probably 40 plus years.
Well, her brother and I are best friends,
Oh,
Stevie.
all right.
And me and Stevie used to lock people in the morgue. When they would give me the blues, Stevie was pretty strong in the community, if you will. And we locked a couple of people in the morgue, and they stopped messing with me. I will tell you that. So it's good to have people on the ground. But another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, and this is really, again, paying homage to your dad, to your mom, because I would hear stories, little kid, but I'm a grown man now, and I can do a better job putting it into perspective. You help. See, I got a doggy too. Come on. I'm
Sounds like a big one.
Here's a big one. I live in Santan. We need a big one over here. But many a time, I remember hearing stories about your dad helping other funeral directors.
Mhm.
He helped a lot of them. He would lend them cars. And I also remember the haters, the people who were jealous. And he was always kind to me. And I saw him as the type of person, you play fair with him, he'll play fair with you. But you come
Absolutely.
over there trying to take advantage of him, he gonna cut you off as he is supposed to. But I remember you guys helping a lot of funeral directors, and unfortunately, and I don't think it's just specific to our community, but the jealousy of your empire, and you have built a nationally recognized, if not internationally recognized, empire in the funeral industry. And I'm particularly proud to know you. I
Thank
stay in touch with E Rich. I call him E Rich, but Eric
you.
all
Eric,
the time,
Eric.
and of course Victor. And kudos for the work that Vic has done in Annapolis. A
Mm,
lot of people don't know, and I remember also one legislator in particular. I won't name her name out of Prince George's County, but the people who have stymied the growth of this industry. One thing my dad poured into me was the significance of the Black funeral director.
mhm.
Without the Black funeral director, we would be really lost.
Absolutely. We're probably one
Nobody,
of the last.
nobody's going to take care of us.
We're probably right. The last one of the last beside, well, even now beauticians are losing their ground hold, their hold on the African American community, but and so are we, as believe it or not, but not as fast as some of the other industries, the Black businesses. So funeral homes, Black funeral homes are probably one of the oldest entrepreneurs businesses that exist within the Black community. Fortunately, we still support one another. Uh, However, the more money you make and the more educated you are, then you believe you can cross the line and utilize other services. But we still try, we still hold on to our Black community, which is good so
Well,
far.
if nobody told you, Annette, I say thank you for the service that you and your family render to our community. It is
So,
priceless, and you may never get the true thanks that you deserve.
well,
My
that's
dad,
okay. We know where the grace and mercy comes from and all the blessings, and that's all that matters. We don't have to look upon the blessings from the people here on this earth, but when God smiles on you and blesses you, then you know you're doing the right thing. So that's
I
what's
tell you, I
important.
tell you something else, Annette, that I'm also proud of. You're still in the community.
Oh yeah.
I look at some of our institutions, and they get a couple of dollars. They get a couple of dollars, and next thing you know, they have moved. They have moved beyond the Beltway. When I come up North Avenue and I get to that corner, Asquith, or before I even get there on the left at Cecil, that is Black Wall Street, albeit a funeral home, a funeral empire, 150 jobs. You got to unmute yourself. Tell me something about that.
Yes, yes. The dog is just somebody's
It's
at the door.
fine. It's
I
fine. We love
apologize.
dogs.
I apologize.
We
But
love dogs.
yeah, you're right. That who would have known living there on North Avenue for 21 years myself, that God would give me the vision to turn that block into a bereavement center. So it's just my mother. Let me tell you, when we lived at that funeral home, I remember my mother crying and saying to my dad, William, when am I going to be able to live in a regular home, a home that wasn't a funeral home? Um, and because she always wanted to have what the other, so quote unquote, morticians had, the nice homes with the swimming pools, and they were able to wine and dine with their friends and so forth. And, she couldn't do those things. But now when we look back, her sacrifice um, brought a great blessing to not only us as a family, but to the community. So, you never know what your sacrifices will turn into later on in life. That seed was sown into me to fulfill the purpose of the need to heal people and to help individuals and families get through their grief and work through their grief. And we're actually the first African American bereavement center ever established in the country. There is no other African American founded bereavement center in the country, or even in the world, might I say, because I don't know of any third world countries either, um, that have done such.
It was 9 years that I grew up above a funeral home. And finally, we moved back to my mom's house on Moreland Avenue, where I got to live in a real house. Now, I miss East Baltimore because it's a certain authenticity to East Baltimore. People there are authentic. And there's a certain loyalty in East Baltimore that I don't find in West Baltimore per se. But we had a big old park in front of our house, and it was just nice to have some semblance of normalcy. But it didn't stop the business. And so many changes have happened. One of the changes my dad opened my eyes to was how the non-Black conglomerates, particularly one out of Texas, how they would try to extend their hands into the Black funeral industry. And any thoughts on how Black funeral directors in Baltimore, namely the Maryland Funeral Directors and Morticians Association, or the Funeral Directors and Morticians Association of Maryland, why it is so significant in terms of the Black Wall Street, if you will, us supporting us? Because in Baltimore, you're almost looked at as weird if you go to a white funeral home. I mean, it's not even a thought. And so that's like a Black Wall Street characteristic that's in our DNA in Baltimore, and we don't even realize it.
Right. Right.
I mean, you're expected to go to a Black funeral director.
Yes, you are. And most of us, you're absolutely right. And that's what is still sustaining us and holding us. To be able to keep a Black business. However, other states are expanding in other arenas and other territories or other, ethnic backgrounds with funeral services. And another thing that's really growing is cremation services now. So
Joey Brown is leading the way.
Huh?
Joey Brown is a pioneer in that area.
Right. And so, that's another challenge, because traditionally, we as African Americans have had traditional funeral services, with ground burials and viewings and the wake and the funeral and, the beautiful services. That's one thing we can count on is in the Black community, we have good funerals.
And that includes great singers. I went to a funeral for Mr. David Scott out at your facility out in the county. And the young man who was singing,
Yeah.
Oh my God. And the food, oh my God. I don't know who you got to do the catering for the food. Them collard greens were mean. They were straight out of South Carolina somewhere.
You're crazy, Donnie. But that's part of our culture and our tradition, but it also is a very rich and comforting and supportive practice that we actually have in our communities. We come out to support one another. And that's part of the mourning and the healing process too, to have the community present, to give respect and honor to loved ones. And even if you didn't know the person, but you knew somebody in the family, you come out, and in order to pay your respects and regards to that family. So I hope we never lose that tradition, because it's very, very necessary and an important part of the healing process as we deal with life and death. We celebrate when we have good news, and why not even celebrate the life of those who have lived and made an impact or touched other people's lives. So that's something that we hold on to as African Americans, and I hope we continue to do that. If we start becoming westernized, where we just, cremate you and don't memorialize you or celebrate your life, then that means that we have forgotten, the soul, the spirit, the connections, everything that we've had in our life experiences with our relationships. And I hope we never get to that point. But some people feel that way. They are afraid of their emotions. They're afraid of being vulnerable. So they just want to get it over quick and in a hurry, and not, have family or friends there to acknowledge or support. So that can be very cold and isolating, and can be mentally unhealthy.
How have you guys been able to navigate COVID, particularly, 2020, 2021, when it was at its height? What changes did you have to make?
That was a really, really, really difficult time. Very difficult time. One was because, we had to follow the rules that the state was putting in place, the national regulations. We had to limit the number of people, who could attend a funeral, which, oh my gosh, there are families today that are still, dealing with those consequences, where only 10 people, could come to a funeral service or a gathering. You couldn't hug or embrace. You had to refrain from that, for fear of,
Catching COVID.
right, catching COVID. But we didn't shut down. We did not shut down, and we did not stop serving. We kept serving. We were on the front lines, like many of the medical and health professionals. We did not stop. We did not close. But for families who had to memorialize or funeralize their loved ones, they're probably now doing more things on the anniversaries of their loved one's death, as far as coming together. But people couldn't be in the hospitals with their loved ones, so people were dying alone too. And that was a great fear. We also, as a funeral industry, recognize that there were a lot of people dying, not by COVID, but of general health diseases and problems, for fear of not, and they had fears of not going to the hospital, of going to the hospital. So they did not go to the hospital. So people were having strokes and heart attacks and other kind of deaths, because they were afraid to die alone in the hospital or end up in the hospital. And sometimes you went into the hospital and caught COVID.
A lot of times.
Yes, yes. In fact, I had a dear friend who passed away. She went into the hospital for one thing and ended up catching COVID while she was in there and dying. So, there were probably more deaths of natural causes than there was COVID deaths during that time period. And I think it had a lot to do with people being afraid to go to the hospital.
I knew this man. I won't give too many particulars, but he was a veteran, and he had to be about 85. And all he talked about was getting full disability. Now, he had partial disability, but all he talked about, and the lesson in this is speak life over yourself. I don't want full disability. I want full ability. But that's all he talked about. And He finally got the full disability, but found himself in the hospital. He caught COVID, and he never got to spend a dime. And so the lesson for me is speak life over yourself. You know, things happen to us. We find ourselves in this situation, that situation, but I don't want full disability for nothing. I want full ability. Okay. So we've talked about some of the nuances of being in the industry. For years, I have watched, and I'm so glad to finally get to this interview. Hold up. I almost slipped. We gotta acknowledge your mama's church. I imagine that's your church too, but when I would see her at 22nd and Greenmount at St. Anne's, again, to me, it just reiterated your family's commitment to the community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of us, we get, you know, we make some progress, our trajectory improves, bam, straight out to Randallstown. And I love Randallstown. I love Owens Mills. But I'm talking about where you have had the greatest impact. You've taken care of East Baltimore and beyond, but starting in East Baltimore, you never ran from the vision.
Right.
Tell me about St. Anne's Church.
Well, I was born and raised at St. Anne's, and we call it our Black Catholic Church.
They're going to skip it.
My mother, believe it or not, was very revolutionary in coming into that church, because when she started that church, started going to that church and moving in East Baltimore, she was one of the few Blacks in that church, her and a couple of ladies, and they had to sit in the back of the church during her time. So that was in the 50s. The late 50s, and slowly they started moving towards the front.
Yes, ma'am.
You know,
hallelujah.
And having a voice, having a voice in the church. And so we have a long history there at the church. And then she became parish council president. She was the head of many of the committees there, you know, as the Blacks began to grow in that community. And the school, we went to the school there, St. Anne's Catholic School, my siblings and I. So yeah, she was a strong, powerful voice in that church. And unfortunately today they're talking about closing St. Anne's, the archdiocese. And so Eric, my brother, is really, really protesting and working hard to work with the archdiocese and really letting his voice be known as to we should preserve this church. This church is self-sufficient, and we need to continue being a Black Catholic church named St. Anne's. So yeah, we're going through some transitions.
It's fine. We're talking with Annette Grier, March-Grier, and she's an icon, daughter of Roberta and William C. March, and she runs Roberta's house. Welcome back.
I'm sorry. So yeah,
please don't apologize. Pharaoh has interrupted more than his share of broadcasts.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, this so it's heartbreaking to know that the that the church is being closed, and the members who've been there a lifetime are heartbroken as well. We'd have a long history as well as many other members there at that particular church. So we'll see what happens. They're slated to close, in December, but we'll see what happens. And we're not the only ones, of course, the only church they're trying to combine several churches together in one, St. Wenceslaus and St. Francis. And St. Francis is the church to remain open and bringing us all together. So. We'll see.
Are you familiar with Charles on Pennsylvania Avenue? It was like the first black father. I want to say Charles Hughes Plaza or the
No.
last block of Pennsylvania Avenue. There's a senior center, and it's named after. I think he was like the first black priest in Baltimore. But I guess I'm getting to the history of black Catholics in the city of Baltimore, including Mother Lang and
Mm-hmm.
St. Francis. There have been a lot of positive moves and progress that has been made thanks to the black Catholics. I don't know about the rest of them people, but I know that there have been some instrumental and influential black Catholics. And I know your mama loved that church.
Yes, she did.
Okay, so let's talk about the give back. Let's talk about Roberta's house. Let's talk about grief. When my mama died in '85, all of the bereaved families I took care of, none of that mattered. I was sad, probably depressed. It happened in my second year of Morehouse. And I've later realized that the grieving process, even the son of a funeral director needs help, needs guidance, needs direction. And it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay not to be okay, especially when you lose someone that's very close to you and that has been a part of your life.
Has it been a ministry for you that as you minister to others, you minister to yourself?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that I can testify is that death has taught me a lot about life. Um, just growing up in that funeral home, I used to listen to a lot of the funerals and the preaching and the singing. And as a small child, I remember sitting in the stairwell, peeping down through the banister, watching my mom um, hold the family's hand or, hold on to them as they were viewing their loved one for the first time. And I do believe that that was when God planted the seed into me to do what I'm doing today. Um, Being a nurse also gave me a much broader and more educated knowledge and understanding of grief and the impact of grief and the mental health risk that individuals contend with. Just being one of the largest funeral service practitioners in the state, I would see so much unresolved and complicated grief from people, having heart attacks, domestic violence, kids failing in school, um, the tragic deaths that would occur that just impacted people's lives forever, people who carried guilt, blame, and shame for the rest of their lives. People ended up with all kind of illnesses and sicknesses themselves as a result of unresolved grief or complicated grief. And it was back during the 80s when hospices were surfacing, and hospices really were not providing services to inner urban communities. And I don't know if they could anyway, because there wasn't a trust for hospices back during the early 80s, about dying. Black people to die in dignity did not mean you took medicines away from me or did not allow me to have my medications. And that was a concept that we just were not comfortable with or familiar with because of so much prejudice and, racism around, life with African Americans. And so yet hospices were doing a lot of bereavement care and education. And this concept really struck with me as for a need in our communities to help people deal with their grief and loss and to help people cope in healthy ways. And as we started doing these support groups around I'm going to say it was like 1985. And I would, go to the local churches, community centers, whoever would allow me to host a space and have these groups. And I would send letters out to all the churches and all the families we had served. And believe it or not, people started coming. One is because this was a neutral space that they could express themselves and be safe. um, many people from their churches came to express their anger with God because it was a safe, neutral place for them to do this. You know, they couldn't express to their pastor or their church members how angry they were with God, or that they couldn't come back to church because, you know, that's where mama, they visualize mama sitting at, you know, or laying out in the front of the church. Um,
And it leaves
and,
us
you know,
a scar, a mental
right.
scar.
Right, right. And so, you know, this really it grew over time. And then I was being called on to come and speak at various organizations, DSS, DJS, to talk about child grief. I did a lot of self-educating myself, and I started attending a lot of the national associations and conventions around bereavement and grief to learn more. Um, and so that's how it really started. The demand started really becoming more. And you know, I did this for like 36 years. Um, going around town doing this bereavement support groups, and you know, there was more demand for children. There was no place for me to be able to refer families. You know, people would call and say, my child just witnessed the death of their mom or dad, or, you know, and I don't know what to do. Where can I take them for help? And there was no place. There was literally no place to refer them. Um, of course, there was a hospice out in Delaney Valley, but our families, that wasn't even culturally sensitive to send our families out there. So, you know, God started saying to me, you know, we need something for these kids. What are you going to do for the kids? And the vision started growing. Yeah, the vision started growing. And by this time, we had moved out of that old funeral home parlor on 928 East North Avenue. And that house had become vacant because we had moved across the street to um, North Avenue and West Baltimore by that time. And so when my mother passed away, before she died, actually, we had a family meeting as to what we were going to do with that house on North Avenue. And I said to my siblings, I said, what if we tore it down and built a bereavement center for children and families and name it after mom, Roberta's house? And that was a very emotional moment because this was like 1 week before she died. And so, you know, and it was interesting because it was like as she was dying, the house roof started caving in, almost as though this was like symbolic to her leaving, that we were now going to reestablish something new at this location. So
I will do a new thing.
that's right. That's when the vision really came to life. And we had decided to establish a nonprofit and begin working on this. And then I started meeting with various officials and legislatives and Senator Barbara Mikulski to say, how can we do this? How can we get funding for this? And she was able to get the first earmark, $250,000, to get the bereavement center started. And that's when I opened up the first center on Broadway across from the Blacks and Wax Museum. Hired 3 people, and I started training volunteers from the community, the church community, social workers, teachers, to help facilitate support groups for all ages, children, adults, teenagers, and so forth. And here we are today, 15 years later, with 32 employees, a newly constructed center there at North and Cecil, which is a $14 million project, and it's fully paid for by, you know, state government and foundations, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation and many other foundations. And I'm telling you, it's a beautiful facility inside and out. It's very warm. It's very inviting. It doesn't look clinical. We have all kind of family therapy rooms. We provide behavioral health services, individual counseling. We have 5 therapists as well as 15 different free programs around grief support. For children, we do a Camp Aaron every year for 60 plus kids. All of these programs are free. The only thing it requires is for people to call and register. We have interns every year coming from the local schools, from Coppin, Morgan, University of Maryland, Towson, um, Hopkins, to get internships there at Roberta's house to learn about grief and trauma and how it impacts our communities and how to serve. So it's a one. I can only say through God that this has all happened. And he continues just to direct our path and expand our reach. So, and I'm not going to say it's been easy. It has been a lot of tests and trials and tribulations along the way. But that's what life is all about: schooling and teaching us, teaching me specifically as to what I need to know in order to do this work. And God,
I'm over here smiling because I'm thinking, and this is, please forgive me. I'm your younger brother from another mother, and I
that's
just got
right.
a vivid imagination.
That's right.
But I remember one story my father told me about a fight that broke out at a funeral. Nobody got shot or anything. But what he told me was somebody's head went into the limousine and put a dent in it.
Oh, wow.
And it just made me think of how much a funeral director is so much more than a funeral director.
Oh, yes. Oh,
He's
yes.
got to be able, or you got to be able to pray for the family.
Yeah.
So public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be sergeant at arms.
You do.
You got to show people decorum.
You have to referee.
Referee. I've seen at funeral arrangements somebody chasing one family member around the table with a knife. I mean, because we are colorful people.
So true to that. And emotions get the best of us in these times. It's not unusual that many family dynamics are exaggerated even more when a death occurs.
Yeah, mama left this for me. No, she didn't. And that's when the fight broke out. She left it for me. Or somebody going all up in her stuff and the other family don't know, or one child taking care of the parent, and then out of the blue, here come the other siblings from out of town, and Lord have mercy. Yeah. God bless the Black funeral director and mortician. Hell, we need therapy our own selves.
Yes, we do. We do. But that's part of the work that we do, and we've learned to accept and work with our families. We know our families.
Your daddy taught me when I was 17 coming out of Dunbar. Your auntie was named Thelma.
That is correct. Thelma March.
And I was among the first cadre of Thelma C. March scholarship recipients out of Dunbar High School.
You sure
were. Now at the age of 59, I look back and I know a part of my duty is paying it forward. So I know that because of people like your dad, who showed me to give back. My dad, my mom, they showed me my mom, her last Thanksgiving, I'm sitting there at the table, chopping on some pineapple upside down cake. And she comes over my right shoulder, and she gives me 2 plates wrapped in aluminum foil. And she said, here, go give these to somebody. And I said, in my little ignorant, arrogant manner, ornery manner, give them to who, Ma? She said, anybody.
Anybody.
And years later, I would meet a B. Gaddy, and I would become so fascinated with her work. And she had told me stories how she gave up her bed. But years after that, it dawned on me, the first person who taught me to feed anybody.
That's right.
Was my mother.
That's right.
I get it. I get it now. I really get it. You never know. You never know. Out in these streets, it might be a drug addict to save our lives.
That's right. You're right. You know,
You've been in the hood. I know you know.
absolutely. You know, I when we lived at 928 East North Avenue, my mother would make plates for me to take outside in the back alley and give
Feed people.
to the homeless. Right. Um, I'm emailing you something right now, Donnie, if you want to share it. It's a picture of you getting that scholarship, I believe.
Ooh, you gonna make me cry. I'm trying not to cry. I think of your dad, and I think of the give back. I gotta share this story with you, Annie, because I ain't gonna be number 100 with you. I I asked my dad because your dad was very fair skinned. Wow,
Is that
your
you?
dad was. Yes, me.
I thought it
That's
was.
me.
You should
Your
share
dad was
that
very
too.
fair skinned, and my mom was very fair skinned. But I remember asking my dad, I'm like, Daddy, is he black? And I'm not going to use the word he used, but he said, boy, he more Negro than you. He didn't say Negro. And then I
Yeah,
learned when he gave me the scholarship how he retired from the post
post
office.
office. That's right. He worked for the post
So
office
what
for
stood out in
36
my mind,
years.
he did a whole, I guess, 30, 40 years at the post office and then starts a brand new life. And at 59, I guess the real inspiration is it's never too late. Come on.
That's right.
Never too late to follow your dream
That's right.
and
Yeah,
and do it well.
that's right. He did. He did. He worked night shifts at the post office for 36 years while he was building his funeral home practice. So my mother, yeah, she did a lot with him as his partner. You know, she ran that service. You know, the ran those services during the day and met with those families, and he went out in the streets, and that's when you had home visits. You know, you went out to the family's home and made those funeral arrangements.
I
Um,
was, I was a handsome young man.
yeah, you were, and you still are,
Hold on, we
and you
moving
still
on up
are.
there.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that. There you
But your
go.
dad was a class act, and I also remember he wasn't one to hang with a lot of people. Where a lot of funeral directors they met at the Odyssey, the Clico, the 909. Your dad was disciplined. That's what I remember. I wouldn't see him. I see the other ones. I could name names, but he was about the business.
Yeah, he was probably working two jobs too, so he was probably tired. That too. That too. Yeah.
Wow. Roberta's house. It's been 15 years.
Yes, it's been 15 years now, and it's just it's continuing to grow, um, and we're serving more and more people, you know, every year, and we serve over 2,000 people a year. Um, it's just it's amazing. It's amazing what God has made happen.
And how many generations? So your dad's generation, your generation, your the grandchildren is at
Right.
least
So
three
we're down to the
generations.
yeah, three generations now. So my kids aren't in it right now, but Victor's children are in it. I think Eric has one that's now in school. My sister has one that is an attorney with us. Um, yeah.
See, it's so much more than just burying people. There are
Oh,
cottage
absolutely.
industries. The cemetery you have.
Right. It's business. So, you know, and when you're employing 150 people, you've got HR, you've got the, you know, the legal aspects of everything. And, you know, it's a lot. It is a lot. And, you know, being also regulated by the state as well as the industry. So, yeah. And we're very involved on all aspects.
And you guys are part of the East North Avenue transformation. Now, I
Right.
don't know if you know this, but Senator Hayes and Governor Westmore have done $28 million to take care of communities from Mount Royal to Walbrook Junction. But long before that effort, I remember your family working with others like Great Blacks in Wax to improve East North Avenue.
And still are. Because it is really, there's a lot of blightness still along that North Avenue corridor. And we want to change that, that environment. A lot of empty, vacant houses, and just it doesn't look good. It just really doesn't look good. So we're continuing to try to work with the Northeast Baltimore um, or the East Baltimore Neighborhood Association there.
But I'm sure you're aware of the black butterfly, which is East Baltimore, West Baltimore, and the white L. There's this theory: the black butterfly and the white L. The white L goes from Johns Hopkins University straight down to the harbor and over to East Harbor. And in our lifetime, the resources, too many of the resources, a disproportionate amount of resources has gone into the white L. When you look at East Baltimore, West Baltimore, it's full of neglect. I mean,
Yes.
Cecil Kirk Elementary School, even though I almost drowned in their pool years ago, yeah,
Me
them,
too.
them kids were rough on me, held my head underwater. Oh my God, they was rough on because they thought we were rich, and my daddy was a working man like them. But you know, I didn't drown. I ain't never forget that. But they deserve a new school. And it's always this thing about, well, there's not enough people. It's always an excuse, even though we have one of the largest percentages of Black elected officials in the country. We've got one of the largest, if not the largest, Black caucus in the country.
Hmm.
But bringing that money home has been a challenge. We need business-oriented, business-minded Black elected officials, not people just going down there for themselves, but people who understand the business. Like I said, I remember a elected official in Prince George's County helping the conglomerates,
Hmm.
non-Black conglomerates who want to take your business, who want to take our Black business, our Black funeral business, when it's like, damn, can't we have anything?
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
People don't notice the fight that you have to wage in the industry because of outsiders. Just like when you mentioned the beauty salon, I once dated a beautician, and she educated me on how much the Koreans, I'm naming names,
Right. Own
come
all
into
the
our
hair.
community, and they doing hair in the back of the beauty shop.
And they have the monopoly on all of the
Product,
wigs and the
yeah.
hair and all the products. Yep, they sure
They,
do.
people
And
don't
if you
realize.
remember when we were younger, well, when I grew up, the corner stores were owned by a lot of the Jewish community. And then after Martin Luther King's, rioting and all of that, a lot of the Jews left our neighborhoods, and the blacks came in and took ownership of a lot of those corner stores. Now they're all Asian or Korean
Middle,
or
Middle,
other.
Middle Eastern.
We don't even own the corner stores and the liquor stores anymore, even though the liquor stores didn't do us any good, but we don't even own that anymore in our neighborhoods. Gas stations, 7-Elevens, none of that. We just don't, we have no opportunities for those types of businesses for some reason. And I don't quite understand that either.
We,
Um,
we we got tired of working the corner stores, and we moved. Once we moved to the county, and then we get out there and think the fight is over. Do you know that right now there's legislation? Prince George's County, Montgomery County, they have like 900,000 people. Their county councils are 11 people. Baltimore County still has 7 people on their council. when the norm is 11.
Wow.
So we move to the suburbs and we think the fight is over. And the fight is not over. As long as you black and in America, you're going to have to fight. Well,
that's the truth. That's the truth.
Any final thoughts? We've covered so many things, and we probably could go on for hours, but this is business, and I will not impede on your time. Any final thoughts, Annette? And thank you for this time. Thank you for this picture.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Yes. Well, thank you, Donnie, for, speaking with me today, inviting me to come on to your show. I really appreciate it. But for those who are maybe dealing with, grief or the loss of someone special, know that reaching out is not a sign of weakness, or it's not a sign, that something is wrong. Our parents didn't teach us how to grieve. Our grandparents didn't teach us how to grieve. And even historically, we as African Americans don't grieve and mourn as we should, and reach out for knowledge and education about this process that is a natural, normal human experience. And some people can really get lost and stuck in their grief. And that's where education helps. Our children will blame themselves. We will blame ourselves. Understand that Roberta's House is a place that you can seek help. And please look us up, robertashouse.org. Our number is 410-235-6633. Give us a call if you know someone, or if you're struggling right now. It does not hurt to reach out and learn more about how to get through these type of life experiences. We cannot grieve alone. And we have this pledge. It goes, I care for you, you care for me, and we care for each other.
I do have one question. Isn't there a book? Does your family have a book out, like a history book? I got to show you. This is my first book.
Beautiful. Okay. No, we haven't gotten one together yet, but that is something we've had discussions about.
Yeah, that's my second book. I Am Black Wall Street. Unapologetically Black is the first one. And this one just came out, Journalpreneur. And I will tell you, although I didn't go into the funeral business, I did become an entrepreneur. And I would say that my father was my first teacher.
All right.
He made me listen to Paul Harvey, and now you know the rest of the story. He made me listen to Carl T. Rowan, read editorials. So big ups to the funeral funeral industry. It birthed me.
And congratulations to you, Donnie. You're doing a great thing. You're moving and shaking and bringing education and knowledge to our community. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you to your family for always loving me.
All right. All right. Take care. God bless.
God bless. If I think better, I do better. Have a great afternoon. We'll be back Wednesday at 12 noon.
All right.
Good afternoon, world.
Take care.